Guns, gangsters, and the pure grit of the Hong Kong underworld. It was this tale of treachery, The Mission, that made critics around the world sit up and take notice of Hong Kong filmmaker Johnnie To. A veteran of more than 25 years in the industry, he's made a name for himself by delving deep into Hong Kong's triads.
有忠有義，富貴榮華，不忠不義，照子蓮花。
His highly successful film Election showcased their secrets with his slick cinematic style. But now Johnnie To is trying something a little different. This week on Talk Asia, we go behind the scenes with the internationally acclaimed filmmaker as he serves up a slice of reality. Johnnie, welcome to Talk Asia. Now, you're shooting your latest movie, which is apparently one of 4 proposed films that you're doing this year. That sounds like a lot to me. How do you do it?
It's actually a Hong Kong style. It's our habit. It's not strange for me to do 2 movies at the same time. I don't want to be a superstar director or to be one of those big names. I just have the passion. I love movies. I really enjoy the process, and I don't need to be famous. I like staying at the production house, working with the crews. Though my temper isn't really good, but I still enjoy working with them. That's why I like to keep making movies.
One of the movies that really sort of, propelled your career was in 2005, and it was Election, about the election of a new Triad leader. Quentin Tarantino called it the best movie of 2005. Did you ever expect that it would get such a big following, that movie?
Of course, I'm proud to have such a flattering comment from Tarantino. I like his films very much. But I don't think I'm as amazing as he described. I always try not to touch on political issues in my movies, but somehow I think it's quite essential for movie makers to hold their own views and have their own values. As you know, Hong Kong went through a lot of changes and challenges after 1997, like the Asian financial crisis and later SARS. We all survived, but no one seemed to remember how. At the time, in 2005, people were calling for a general election in 2008. The city seemed quite chaotic all of a sudden. Hong Kong needed a change, and indeed it was changing, economically and politically. My feeling was that I had to find a way to express that and tell what was going on. And that's why I used my movie to reflect some of my feelings. I used the changes in the Triad society to indicate the changes that I observed in real life. Actually, I just wanted to send a message that we all needed to face change. No exceptions, right?
You're clearly fascinated by what goes on in Triad society, and you're often lauded for the accurate way in which you depict Triad life, including their rituals and ceremonies. How do you know so well, seemingly, what goes on inside Triad life?
Actually, the Triads were an integral part of Hong Kong society before the 1997 handover. Well, according to my research, there were more than 500,000 Triad members at the time, while the total population was 5 million. So it's quite a lot, actually. I didn't really care what they had done, but it's a part of the history of Hong Kong. I think it's worth telling what life was like in the past, especially when I grew up in the walled city. I witnessed the whole thing. I witnessed how the Dark Forces era came to an end right after the 1997 handover. So I think it's worth showing this chunk of history in the big screen to tell of their existence. Plus, the fact that I was so eager to make a movie out of the walled city, that's why I'd been doing research on it for more than 10 years. But unfortunately, it wasn't perfect. The ceremony was actually longer than it was in the movie. It lasted for 2 or 3 days. I just couldn't find those people who still remembered all the details because they're getting old now. So the movie shows only a small portion of the real thing. I'm glad the viewers found it realistic, but I know I'm just showing about 10% of the entire ceremony. That's why I'm also quite sad about not having all of it in there. I feel that as a movie maker, I have a responsibility to tell the truth to the audience and to teach history through movies.
So for you, growing up in the walled city, it actually sounds like kind of frightening experience for a little kid to have to live in a place like that, where it's really a hotbed of triad activity. Was it a scary place to live?
Actually, I was just 4 or 5 years old at the time. I couldn't really see a lot. It was so dark in there, even during the daytime. It was as if there was no sunlight at all. There was a tiny playground inside the walled city, which was about 600 square feet, I think, and people used to hang their clothes to dry there on the playground equipment. I can remember, I could see a dead body lying on that playground just about every day, with some kind of white detergent or powder sprayed on the body to prevent it from smelling, because it was very hard to get an ambulance in there to remove the corpse. The walled city was indeed an area that police tried to stay away from. So it wasn't strange at all to see a corpse laying there for a couple of days before it had been removed. Also, fetuses could be found in the toilets. Maybe it was an abortion or something. I don't know. But I was too young to be scared. I just felt weird at the time. It was the environment, and to me it was normal. There weren't many conflicts inside the walled city because the elders gave the commands, and the others needed to follow. So it was peaceful. And another reason was that they had quite a lot of illegal activities going on inside, so they had to keep things low and quiet, so their businesses wouldn't be affected. So outsiders might think it was messy, but in fact it was quite calm living inside. Of course, everyone there was really poor, and that's all you can imagine about the life of the poor people in the walled city.
Johnny, tell me what this film is about.
You know, Hong Kong is quite a special place. People are concerned about the stock market and the property market. We don't actually have a real industry. I mean, most people only care about housing prices and stock prices, or are simply struggling to get by. It's actually quite hard for some people, but that is the real situation in Hong Kong. These are the problems that people have to deal with if they choose to live here. So this is the message I want to convey in this movie, that there are some people who find it hard to survive or adapt to this kind of so-called vibrant or dynamic city that's the financial hub of the region.
So, Johnny, this is a disused bank that you've turned into something that's supposed to look like a fully functioning bank. Do you scout the locations yourself?
I wanted to have a place that looked like a real bank. I wanted it to look real. It's actually quite hard to make one, which has such an atmosphere. This is an old area in Hong Kong called Kwun Tong, and this place is going to be demolished right after we've finished. The whole area is going to be rebuilt. It will make way for a new development and sky-high prices again.
What's life like on your film sets? You know, are you one of those directors that's throwing the scripts up in the air, you're never satisfied, or are you kind of chilled out?
Well, to be honest and direct, I'm never satisfied. Never. Actually, everyone here knows me well. I say swear words every day. I have no patience, and I don't hold back when I think of something. I'll just say it directly. I don't give people much time to prepare before a shot. I like to finish it quickly and not lag behind. I think I'm quite emotional, but I'm enjoying it though.
Your first foray into this business was when you worked as a messenger at a local TV station. How do you look back on those days?
I wasn't good at studying. I just didn't like it. So I decided to go to work. It was really lucky that I got that messenger job. Actually, I had 4 career choices in mind at the time. 1 was to become a football player. 2 was to get a job at a telecom company. 3, to work in a television station. And 4, to become a policeman. But I got the offer from the TV station really quickly after the interview. The interview was on a Friday, and I got their call on Saturday asking me to start work on Monday. I didn't even really have a chance to explore the other 3 options. It was destiny that my career would be in the film industry. I really do believe it was fate, something you can't predict. But one thing I'm really sure about is that I still would have chosen the film industry if I had another chance to start all over again.
Once you moved past coincidence and realized that this was the path that you wanted to take, was your family supportive of your decision?
My dad was against it originally, of course. He thought I should keep studying, and that was the only thing I needed to do. He didn't really care whether I liked studying or not, or that I wasn't very good at it anyway. But I was determined, and I didn't want to waste my time studying. My eldest brother was my only supporter. He would stand up for me and help me argue with my father. But then, in the end, everything was fine.
You have your signature style. You're famous for this, ultra-stylized aesthetic. How has that developed over the years?
Well, actually, I don't know the answer to this question. I think it's just because of my devotion to movies. My dad worked as an inventory clerk in a cinema. Its name was Tung Lok Cinema. It was really big. I used to meet my dad in the storeroom behind the theater every day after school at around 5 o'clock. And I just watched the movies being shown from backstage. Gradually, it became a habit. It was the only thing that made me happy about my day as well. I think that's how I developed my interest in movies, though I didn't really understand what the movies were about, because they were all in English. There were subtitles, but I couldn't read them. Movies were, indeed, my only entertainment, even when I started work. It didn't matter if they were Japanese or American or European movies. I just enjoyed watching movies. And gradually, I came up with the Johnnie To style.
The film that made you a name was back in 1989. It was all about Ah Long, with a very youthful-looking Chow Yun-fat. Do you have fond memories of that time?
I got a lot of criticism for that movie. People said it was way too sad, and I just made everyone cry. I didn't really get it, because I thought it was a good movie. The Hong Kong film industry was so prosperous at the time. When the market allowed movies with different genres to survive, everyone was happy. And Chow Yun-fat is an outstanding actor. He can play just about any character, and he fits his roles really well. Well, maybe just those kung fu films. People at the time were really dedicated, and they all tried really hard to make good movies. The one thing I will never forget about the movie is the way we shot the final scene, where Chow crashes his motorcycle after several crazy spins. It was a really scary stunt. The motorcycle literally spins in the air. I learned about it from some stunt shows overseas. The stunt coordinator told me the shot was really dangerous, that it was life-threatening. He said that either the stuntman would break his thumbs or, more seriously, break his neck and die. I was stunned, and I struggled for a really long time before I decided to take the shot. I made the final decision the night before we were going to shoot it. I strongly believe that life is full of risks. There are always a lot of obstacles ahead, and you have to find the strength to overcome them. And that's what a filmmaker should do. Tackle all difficulties with faith. I know life is precious, and we shouldn't do anything to risk our lives. But my point is that we need to be determined to face challenges. You either sink or swim.
People do tend to think that your masterpiece, so to speak, was 1999's The Mission. Why do you think that that captured the imagination of audiences so much?
I haven't thought of that before. I didn't expect it to have that effect. It was quite a hard time for the movie industry because we were affected by the Asian financial crisis. Our company didn't have much business, and I desperately needed to find projects to do in order to sustain it. That's why I had no choice but to produce it with a very small budget. It was just 2.5 million Hong Kong dollars, which is very little for a movie. But of course, I had to feed my staff, right? I had to give them work and keep my company running. The amount of money bought me only about 40,000 feet of film, so with such a low budget, I had to finish shooting the movie in 18 days and complete the whole production within a month. In the end, I used 19 days for shooting. It's worth noting how I survived that period of time. I used all the tricks I had. It was really remarkable. Can you imagine? No retakes were allowed because we didn't have enough film. I was really glad that I got it finished as planned. So I didn't really think much about the outcome or the response. I just remember how I got through it all.
Your films play to great acclaim on the festival circuit in Cannes and Venice and Berlin and Toronto. How important is it for you that your movies get that wider exposure outside of Asia?
I think it's always good for filmmakers to get different types of exposure. It benefits both the movie's distribution and the filmmaker's career development. We get a lot more comments in those festivals from all different sorts of people. It's always good for directors, and it's a good chance to meet everyone there, too. We should feel glad that people make noise about our films. It's what keeps us going. If no one's willing to talk about your work, then it's a real shame. It doesn't matter whether the comments are good or bad. We should accept them and value them.
Other Hong Kong filmmakers like John Woo and even now Jackie Chan is into directing, and they've been tempted by the bright lights of Hollywood. What about you?
Of course, Hollywood is a dream place for everyone working in the film industry. Even though I grew up in this former British colony, I agree, Hollywood is the hub for movies. It's also my dream. I'll get there eventually, just a matter of sooner or later. But I'm not sure I can make it. Even if I try hard to make it, I might still not get it right. Of course, I would definitely love to try if I had the chance. But what I'd really want to achieve is not to just be there once or twice, but to get something out of there. I'd want to make something that can't be made anywhere else but Hollywood, not just an ordinary film to put on the screens. To be in Hollywood for a reason. This is what I think it's worth going for.
You've made so many movies now in all sorts of genres, from drama to comedy and history and fantasy. It must be really hard to keep coming up with ideas. Have you thought, what might happen if one day you wake up and the cupboard is bare? No more ideas?
Oh.
Well, I think we have different ideas at different times. When I made my first movie, at the age of 23, when I was still working at the local TV station, well, I don't know what I was thinking back then. Of course, at the time, I didn't think about the achievements I would have. Everything accumulates as time goes by. It affects our knowledge, our thinking, our experience, and our way of life. If my brain goes blank and I forget about everything, I think it's not a bad thing. At least I can start over again. But alternatively, if I've got too many things going on in my brain, then I can't see things clearly. I think your question is really good. What kind of movie would I make if my brain goes blank someday? Well, I think it could be a good thing, because then I'll start from scratch.
This has been very enlightening. Johnny, thank you very much. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And the show doesn't stop here. You can check out more Talk Asia interviews online at cnn.com/TalkAsia.